of the things when I was thinking about today, I was thinking about the power of the policy world and our policy discussions and events like today. And sometimes they give you a bit of a sense of the magic dust of how we can solve problems. And I've certainly been caught up in that many times in my work over the last few years. But at the same time, we're trying to think about responding to problems and challenges that often seem quite intractable. And I think the Minister has already highlighted today that some of the challenges that we're dealing with in terms of supporting children and young people who are looked after at home. So we get caught up with the policy debates, the policy discussions, the things we can do. At the same time, we're dealing with problems and challenges that don't ever seem to quite shift in the way we want to. And what's obvious at the moment is that there is a considerable will to confront some of the challenges that are facing children and young people and their families who are looked after at home. And for starters, just to say in terms of the title, it's a quote that I've used several times now. My mentor helps me sort out things in my head and my heart. And it's from a young person who completed a questionnaire for a part of our work. And it was part of a much wider quote about how the mentor had, in that young person's life, had helped them move from a place of great challenge and difficulty to one where they felt that they were moving on, they were going to college, they were sorting out things in their own life. And the problem about using quotes from children and young people is they're often very flashy and attractive and very articulate, but do they represent a kind of wider constituency of children and young people's views? And in this case, I would say from the work that I've been doing with colleagues over the last few months that it absolutely does. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. So the thing that I think is important to highlight is that when we're thinking about mentoring, we're thinking about something that is complementary to all the other work and approaches and initiatives and energies that we put into supporting young people looked after at home. So it's not to undermine the very good work of professionals that's going on. And just to start as a shared point, there are many definitions of mentoring. They all kind of focus around the same territory. But here we've got one from some work done a few years ago, which says mentoring is the support of one individual by another within a relationship developed through regular contact over a period of time in order to achieve a stated objective. So that's the kind of key elements. And I'm realizing when I'm talking that some of you up here, down there, might not be able to see the screen. But it's the crucial thing is a relationship. The crucial thing that it's a relationship that is mutually respectful and trusted, and that it can be goal-orientated. It can be goal-orientated, but it's also about the relationship. And those two things are important to take into account. So in the context of why we're here today, why mentoring? And this is from some work done in the States. And I'd have to say, having spent some time in this territory over the last few months, that there is some fantastic work gone on around mentoring in the States. There's a real culture around mentoring, and the most well-known organisation, which we might be able to show a little clip from, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, has been running for over 100 years and has literally mentored hundreds of thousands of children and young people who are in vulnerable situations. So, from a kind of analysis of some of the work that's gone on, here we're talking about where children and young people don't have a trusted, constant relationship in their lives, mentoring can have a place. And that's quite key because we've already heard this morning talking about the importance of relationships and of trust. To provide additional positive relationships where children and young people don't have them. So one relationship is never, quite frankly, enough in anybody's life. So thinking about the complexity and the additionality of a relationship. And in terms of mentoring as a task, it can be the primary focus of a program, so it can be exactly what's happening, or it can be used along with other approaches. And certainly in our discussions in the group, the LACSIG hub, we've talked about its relationship, for example, to advocacy as another form of support to children and young people. as well as that in terms of positive relationships with social workers, care staff, teachers, etc. So, now, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, as I mentioned, have been running for 100 years, and they have some of the biggest kind of evaluation and research on mentoring programs that are around. And one of the things that they do is it's a volunteer program. So the big brother or the big sister is the mentor, and the mentee is the little sister or the little brother. And these kind of relationships happen over a period of time, and we might not be able to get here, but the YouTube videos reflect the kind of relationships. And one of the things that struck me is a lot of those relationships are bonded around doing fun things like going to sports, like doing hobbies, but it's also about supporting children and young people in terms of their schoolwork, their relationships with their family, if they're being bullied. Aha!
Sorry, we're on. I think it's something that you're really, really gonna like.
Wrestling!
I don't know if it's that. It's something that you really, really like. Like, really, really like. Ah, I see.
I told you it was wrestling.
So it's indeed wrestling. Hello, hello. Yeah. Yeah, have you ever been to something like this before?
No. Our friendship is good.
Is that too tight?
No.
Ah.
That's good right there. Sometimes we talk about wrestling, sometimes we do our schoolwork.
I want to get you like a little cape or something.
I do a lot of schoolwork with Julio.
Julio, throw muscle out, eh?
Occasionally play baseball. More recently, we've been playing a lot of basketball.
Really sick, actually.
Thank you.
Talk about video games or just anything that's on his mind, things that are bothering him.
Yo, that guy is serious.
He's good.
Absolutely not. Yankees are, in fact, the best baseball team ever. Mets are not.
You were wrong.
No. What do you mean wrong?
Last time I picked him up, he had like a little bully problem, and so I got involved with him, his grandmother, and mother. I don't think that kid's bothering you anymore, right? Or
Go deep.
No,
I don't have a mitt. I'm gonna hit my hand. Are you gonna catch it? Yeah.
Yeah.
You sure?
When I get bullied,
Oh, so close.
Thomas helps me with like getting angry. Like sometimes I get angry.
you know, try to help you calm down.
Thomas!
What?
I would like to see Julio pursue some sort of a sport because he really, really enjoys it. You know, he was telling me
Get it, Julio.
sometimes I'm not good at catching,
Ah!
and so like some of the other kids are mean.
Hold the ball. Hold the mitt up like this.
So I think that's like a good opportunity to like teach him how to catch better.
If you're going like this, you can't see the ball. You can't see your mitt and the ball. Toss it. Keep the mitt up though.
I know, 'cause sometimes it's like in front of me, so it's kind of hard.
Keep your arm bent though.
What I'm doing in volunteering, I know that this is good.
There you go, Julio.
You wanna know what my coach tells me?
What happened?
Sometimes when people are in outfield and they don't go after their ball, because it's lazy.
That ball's a little fast sometimes. I don't want to call it lazy. There you go,
that's
Julio.
what I say.
I think there's 3 tiers to minor. It's like A, AA, and AAA baseball. And then if you're good enough,
That sounds like batteries.
Just kind of being big brother. It feels natural. It feels really right and good.
So just thinking about coming back to why we're here today and around mentoring for children and young people looked after at home, and picking up on some of the issues that the Minister raised earlier. And I'm saying here can help, should help, may help to tackle some of the thorny issues. For example, supporting educational outcomes, one of the key concerns around looked after children at home. Provide positive, trusted relationships. Help to avoid risky behaviours. Promote resilience. Provide aspiration and confidence in others. And these are drawn from our discussions over the last few months. They're drawn from the work of mentoring services in Scotland. They're also drawn from wider research and evaluation both here and across the UK. So it's not an exhaustive list. So in terms of our work, our starting points were exactly around that constant relationship. So looking at how, if we actually believe that children should have a constant relationship, how could that be supported? So a presence of someone who takes an active interest, provides encouragement and support, and can challenge services and systems that can meet children's needs. And in the LACSIG Hub, we've had some discussion about, well, surely in terms of relationships, some of the professionals who are already there in a child or young person's life, surely they should be doing that kind of thing. Well, we know that there are many positive relationships which are provided by professionals, but it's about a sense of a different kind of relationship, about one which can meet those various kind of different needs of a child and is totally child-centred. So we're recognising absolutely the value of relationships and roles of other people, crucially family members and peers, but also, going back to Mike's last activity, the named person and lead professional, teachers, social workers, care workers, health professionals, hearing panel members and advocates. But I know in my work with children and young people, and I'm sure you do too, that it's not a constant all of the time that children and young people have exactly the kind of relationships that they want with all of these people. So it's not to diminish that, but it's to add something else. So our aims are to explore the benefits of mentoring and to consider how a national mentoring scheme or approach for looked after children and young people could be developed and implemented. We've been working since December 2012, so we've been working very fast, and we've been doing a variety of things. We've been examining evidence, we've been engaging with experts, and by experts I mean the people who are actually on the mentoring hub. I'm talking about inputs from mentoring projects and services, and of course children and young people. We've been engaging with young people, and we've been exploring positive attributes and challenges. So recognising that there could be some kind of questions in there about the value and necessity of an approach for mentoring. And we're now in the final stages of developing some proposals which will go to the Scottish Government. So we've been working fast, and I think our fastness is based on that commitment to taking an approach to supporting children and young people looked after at home, but also thinking about drawing on what's already out there. I mean, there is lots of fantastic work that's out there. So I'm just going to take you briefly through each of these different things. So, what the evidence says, and there is evidence out there. In Scotland, there are evaluations of projects and services. There is some UK-wide research, for example, done by the Joseph Randry Foundation a few years ago. I would say that in the UK, there is not a vast amount of research or evaluative work on mentoring. And as I mentioned before, a lot of the key work has gone in the States, where mentoring is a kind of real cultural norm, not just for children and young people, but in kind of business environments, arts environments, etc. So drawing on some of the kind of key findings, and each of the evidence actually kind of mirrors and reflects some of the common messages, helping with education, social skills and relationships more frequently. And it's noted that it's a bit more effective than that focused on behaviour problems such as bullying or reducing teen pregnancy. Highly valued by young people, that's certainly mirrored in our discussions, in helping them with relationship problems, building their confidence and improving their well-being, and that's from the Claydon and Mike Stein work for the JRF around care leavers a few years ago. And the benefits of mentoring are apparent from early childhood to adolescence, and that's been quite important for our discussions because we've been thinking there's not many resources about. There's 5,000 children and young people looked after at home, there's over 15,000 looked after generally. Where can the best energies around this be put? And the evidence that we've had from mentoring services in Scotland, in looking at it elsewhere, is that it is effective from children at really quite a young age into adolescence, and as we've heard from young people who are care leavers, into young adulthood. So there is evidence out there. It seems to be reflecting some of our discussions with experts, and we've had some very useful inputs from mentoring projects in Scotland, working with both looked after children and young people at risk of, for example, offending. And what we've learned out there is that there's an awful lot of expertise out there. There's mentoring programs run by local authorities in Scotland and by the voluntary sector. They have a wide target range, so some of them work with children and young people who are 8, some up to adolescents, some of them work with a slightly older age group. That they have a kind of very inclusive approach to the needs of children and the transitions that they're going through. And that there are a variety of approaches about referrals, whether that's kind of open referral, self-referral, coming from social work, whatever. And there's a variety of different models of approaches. I mean, in our work in the Mentoring Hub, we are kind of moving towards use of volunteers, similar to the Big Brothers and Big Sisters in the States. But there are services that use part-time sessional staff, but they're all united in usually having a professional coordinator or manager who can tackle some of the complexity that comes up. And that, as of course, there is experience in using quality and standards and a growing, I would say, expertise in evaluating and measuring outcomes. And a kind of common message is intervention early. No surprise to us in terms of where we are in Scotland in terms of our messages about intervention, but early intervention appears to be more productive. So, for example, evaluations that have been done show benefits and positive outcomes. This is just from 2, the YMC +1 mentoring, which is a developing and growing program which has just had a big lottery grant, found that 85 young people had significant changed behaviour after 6 months. That is with young people who are at a risk of offending, not necessarily looked after, but I'm sure that within that population, that's something we're exploring with them, that there will be looked after young people. And one run previously by Renfrewshire Council, which is the emphasis slightly changed now, found a positive impact on the self-esteem of young people and their capacity to engage in preparing for employment, education and training. So that's what experts have found. Another group of experts are, of course, children and young people. And we've done 2 things to make sure that our work is informed by what children and young people said. We had an online survey which was completed by 116 children and young people from under 7 up until their early 20s. And we also had an event in Glasgow hosted by Who Cares Scotland with 15 young people from 13 upwards in a kind of think tank event to explore positives and attributes of mentoring. And what we found is that, I mean, overwhelmingly, young people said yes, they think mentors are a good idea. Those who had them were extremely positive. Those who hadn't had them wanted one, or thought that other young people should have one. They said yes to someone they trust, respect, and who listens. You know, the triumvirate always comes up. Trust, respect, listens. Yes, to be able to choose someone, and that's a very important part of this. It's not going to work if you don't really get on with the person that you're matched with. So they felt that that was very important. Yes, to peer mentors with similar experiences and mentors with a range of backgrounds. So some of the older young people in particular, some of them who themselves were peer mentors, saw that as a very positive part of that work. And certainly some of the work that's going on at the moment in terms of the Life Changes Trust is looking at the ways in which peer mentoring and mentoring for young people leaving care and with experience of care can be supported. So that's going to be a great parallel opportunity that we will hope to work closely with. Yes to getting involved in recruitment and training, and yes to mentors at the right time, the right place and the right intervention. Again, a quote from a young person and just a timely reminder that doing something after a crisis or a difficult situation is not always the most helpful. And just a few quotes from here. Young people said about a mentor can take you out, be friends with you, have a laugh, stick up for you, speak on the phone. So someone who is obviously a trusted, supportive adult. Take part in activities, going back to that Big Brothers and Sisters, going to a ball game, going to wrestling, as important as talking. Come to sports days. I'm surprised how much this stuff about attending and supporting young people at sports days. One young person told me about, you know, obviously a very good sports player, and about his experience of no one coming along to watch him. And parents' days, going out and about with the young person, taking an interest in how the young person is getting on, being in touch with parents. So parents aren't out of the frame, and for children and young people looked after at home, definitely not out of the frame. And be part of the young person's life, not just when times are hard. You need to build trust, and the mentor would need to support you even when you're in difficulty. So, and all these things and all the things that children and young people absolutely in accord with some of the debates we've been having in the LACSIG Hub, and in accord with the evidence drawn from other services and from research and evaluation. So some of the, and I'll keep this brief in terms of the attributes and challenges. I mean, as all of these things, you start thinking of an idea and you think of some of the ways in which that idea can't come to fruition. And I think with the LACSIG mentoring hub, that's about thinking about some of those challenges and thinking about, are those really big ones? Are they ones that can be got over? How do we suggest problem solving to any national scheme or approach that's developed? And one of the challenges, of course, as we know, it's another adult in a very, very crowded space for children and young people who are looked after at home. They have lots of professionals in their lives, they tell us that all the time, they talk about the challenges of going to a panel and not knowing all the people in the room, or going to a child protection meeting. So that is a kind of challenge in terms of how that's placed. What I'm always impressed with in terms of young people is how they can actually begin to work out who plays what role in that space. That training and support is needed for mentors to deal safely with children's complex experiences. So going back to that last exercise, thinking about some of the challenges that come up for young people looked after, how can they be dealt with safely and appropriately in terms of supporting young people. Effective links with others supporting children. I think Mike would give 3 cheers in terms of that, in terms of being able to relate to the other professionals and adults supporting children. And not undermine any positive relationships at home and care. We had a very helpful debate about, yeah, but social workers need to have great relationships with young people. Care workers do, teachers do. So it's not undermining what's already there or the need for positive relationships to be in place. And ensure that more mentoring supports transitions. And we've talked about the transition from primary school to secondary school, from different kind of placements, and as we've heard, for children and young people looked after at home, there isn't necessarily a stability in terms of being at home. They might be accommodated away from home at points, and available to those who need it when they need it. The attributes, trusted and positive relationships are freely entered into, not prescriptive. And that's really key, and it's key to thinking about mentors, but it's also key to thinking about other roles like advocates and other trusted adults in children and young people's lives, where there isn't a statutory responsibility, where there isn't a best interest principle kind of overriding that contract. Active choice by a young person matched well, families support mentoring relationships, and certainly the Plus Mod work done by the YMCA was very emphatic that there had to be consent from families, there had to be that support from the family environment, and that had to be developed. Procedures and policies help quality mentoring, access to mentoring is consistent and longer term, and that is one of the kind of key challenges. And finally, in terms of this, this is something that's come up from our recent discussion, and also from some of the thinking that's gone on for really a very long time in the States. And they talk about mentor-rich environments. So the mentor is not an island entire of themselves. They're working along with other people, and that there are other forms of support to children and young people. And the YMCA talked about anchor community organisations in its work, which meant that when the mentor leaves the stage, that young person already has connections and is embedded in the community and in the different kinds of organisations, particularly children's and youth organisations, who can support them. So that sense of an anchor community organisation, seeing it placed in that community context, linking to the community assets and supporting a child or young person in that environment. So this is where we're up to. We're work in progress. We're now rushing into the final writing up stages, but I'm sure there's going to be more debate and discussion once our work has been given to LACSIG and the Scottish Government. Anybody here has got any ideas, thoughts, inputs, comments anything that they'd like us to think about, please get in touch with myself, Carolyn, who's working with us in the Scottish Government, and Ben Ferrugia, who many of you know from Celsus. So please get in touch, please give us any of your thoughts and ideas. And I just want to finish off, because I like cross-referencing things. I'm just reading in the paper, The Guardian, this morning, about some of the issues that have come up from the sexual exploitation case that was where the people were sentenced yesterday. And Zoe Williams has got a very good article in today. A child needs someone he or she can trust, and that costs money. And she then goes on to say, it will take a more sophisticated attitude to childhood and vulnerability, and in this case, sexuality. And it will take a lot more basic human respect for people. And she goes on to talk about the nature of the young people who gave evidence. But before we can do any of that, we have to decide collectively to listen. And the spirit of that, I think, is something that's underpinning our work in the Mentoring Hub, and saying categorically that if we actually think children and young need to be supported in a variety of ways, we need to actually, sometimes artificially and constructively, provide different forms of support through trusted, constant adults. Okay, thank you very much.